Sharlayan will under no circumstances intervene in the conflict between Eorzea and the Garlean Empire.
To chart the course of history, not to change it.
It is our way of life, who we are.
But if you imagine the Telophoroi will leave you be, you are mistaken. They mean to kill us all, themselves included.
Any further discussion would be meaningless.
Father, wait!
Don't bother, Alize.
How can you let this happen?
Howdy y'all, Wyrm here. Welcome to episode 3 of the Catchup to Endwalker series. In the last 2 episodes we did a quick recap of the story of patches 5.4 and 5.5. Now, we start to delve into the lore and story of the characters, plot points and locations that will feature in Endwalker. And what better place to start than with the nation of Sharlayan, who are set to play a major role in Endwalker. First, a brief history of Sharlayan. The nation of Sharlayan traces its roots back to the 6th Umbral calamity in Eorzea. At this time, the War of the Magi was raging across the continent. It's at this point that a Rogadan scholar known as Nuncreft predicted that Eorzea would be struck by a massive flood, brought about by this war. But today we know the Ascians had a hand in this due to the rejoining. Nuncreft created a massive magical ark and sailed to Eorzea to save as many as he could. After the flood hit and the ark was threatened, he conjured a spell to transport the ark to the peaks of Girabania, where it still remains to this day. After the flood and the water subsided, they could all leave the ark. Nuncreft led the survivors north to the Dravanian hinterlands, where he constructed a new ship and sailed north, landing on the uninhabited islands of the Old World. It's here that Sharlayan was founded and is still there today, and where we will be headed in Endwalker. Many years later, many scholars led an expedition back to Eorzea, tracing the route their founders took back to the Dravanian hinterlands, where they built an outpost, whose ruins can be seen in the hinterlands today. Around 50 years or so ago, this outpost grew into a colony, and as such became the 6th city-state of Eorzea, to which scholars and learned individuals travelled from all over Eorzea to trade in knowledge and wisdom. Fast forward now to recent history. The Garleans have invaded Eorzea and took over the city-state of Alamigo. Then they turned their gazes towards the rest of Eorzea. While other city-states prepared for war, the Sharlayan city-state, which resisted war in all forms and felt war with the Empire, presented a threat to their very way of life. Sharlayan sent ambassador after ambassador to Garlemald to prevent a war in any way possible, but all returned with no progress made. The writing was on the wall at this point, and with all peace attempts failed, a vote was called for in the Forum, the leading body of Sharlayan society. Led by Fortuno Leviur, father of Alphino and Alize, a faction of scholars in the Forum elected to have their colony retreat from Eorzea. This was a plan that took 5 years, as much knowledge and study was done in the colony that was of prime importance to Sharlayan. But like clockwork, after years of preparation, they evacuated the entire colony's population and resources back to the Old World, and the Sharlayan colony emptied overnight. While this event marked the end of Sharlayan's direct involvement, it was also the point that Louis Roy Leviur founded the Circle of Knowing, the precursor to the Scions of the Seventh Dawn. Fast forward again to the present day. Since withdrawing from Eorzea, Sharlayan has maintained a policy of non-intervention, and in effect has mostly cut themselves off from the rest of the world. We don't really hear from them anymore. Our main interactions with them are through the members of the Scions, most of whom came from Sharlayan, and other organisations such as the Students of Baldessian, who maintain a presence in Eorzea for their studies of the ancient world, the Echo and Hydaelyn. The next major encounter relating to Sharlayan was Eureka, which is actually the Isle of Val, which was located to the east of Old Sharlayan. The island itself was destroyed by a magic very similar to Ultima, with only a few survivors escaping. Years later, the island was rediscovered but in a completely different location, and was known to most now as the Island of Eureka, where the relic regression of Stormblood takes place. We finally had an official engagement with Old Sharlayan just recently. Cryal had returned to Sharlayan to petition the Forum's aid with the recent events in Eorzea, namely the Towers and the Telephory. Sharlayan's response was sending Fortuno Leviur, leader of the Forum and one of the most influential voices in Sharlayan, who made his way to Gridania to give answer to their request. The response from Sharlayan was simple. They under no circumstance would get involved with this current struggle between Eorzea and Garlemald. The Forum leader paid no heed to the Eorzean Alliance's words, nor the pleas of his children for that matter. In fact, he downright stated that these final days were nothing of the sort, and even if they were, Sharlayan would be the first to know. Forsenod leaves shortly after this exchange, but not before he gets into a heated discussion with his children, to which he forbade them from using the name Leviur, and in effect cut off their ties with Sharlayan. I'll get into that in the theory part of this video. As we head into Endwalker, Sharlayan has made its position clear, not to get involved in these matters in any way. As we know from the Endwalker trailers and dialogue from the story, we'll be headed to Sharlayan very soon to find the answers we need, not only about the towers, but also Hydaelyn, Zodiark and the Ascians. On the subject of the trailer, Forsenod's dialogue is very interesting. As I just mentioned, he waved off talk of the final days as nonsense, but in the trailer, his stance seems to have shifted. Likely this scene takes place midway through Endwalker, when the final days would already be in full swing. But even so, Sharlayan will keep its own counsel and not get involved. And that's where Sharlayan stands when it comes time for Endwalker. Now, onto the theory part of this video. Firstly, regarding Forsenod's denial of the Eorzean Alliance's request, and stating they won't get involved. This was expected as they've maintained a stance of non-intervention, summed up in this quote. As Sharlayans, it is our task to observe, to chart the course of history, not to change it. Forsenod confirmed this also, and it's a quote which Sharlayans live by. I made a video recently on why I think this is the case, but I'll quickly break it down here. Charlene has maintained a policy in recent times to not share their knowledge lightly, if at all, even drawing up punishment against any who try. My theory is Sharlayan knows full well that the final days are approaching, but wish to keep out of it. Forsenod's quote in the trailer also backs this up. Come what may, we shall live on. We must. My theory is they intend to stay on the sidelines as they always have, to chart the course of events happening in the world, but also to protect the vast libraries of knowledge they have in old Sharlayan. Sharlayan has most of the world's knowledge and history kept away, and likely the only copies of such, as calamities have wiped out their original records, so they'll go above and beyond to keep that knowledge safe from harm. This is why they won't intervene, and risk becoming a target themselves. But the way Endwalker is shaping up, the final days may be coming their way regardless. If you want to check out my full video on this theory, I left a link in the description. And that's everything concerning Sharlayan as we know it as we head towards Endwalker. Thanks for watching everyone, I really appreciate it, and honestly I don't say it enough. I've plenty more videos on the way to show my appreciation. Leave your personal thoughts on this subject in the comments, I'd love to read them. And leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Lastly, hit subscribe to stay tuned for the multitude of videos I have coming before Endwalker and beyond. Thanks all, and now, as always, have a good one.